So,
Got it. Got it. I see. This is new for you.
so I'm already recording. Um,
Oh,
I'm here today with my friend and teacher, Tom Lescher Pacha. And I'm going to invite you to introduce yourself, Tom. Just tell us how long have you been doing astrology. Please tell us a little bit about your experience with teaching too. I think it's important, not only teaching astrology, but also teaching kids. If you can just do that introduction, because I think it's very meaningful for everything that you have done in your life, having that teaching experience and also your Kundalini yoga experience as well.
and did you want this whole video to be my biography? As old as I am and as much as I've done, I could go on forever about this.
Okay. Yeah,
So,
well, just tell us a little bit of, your experience with that. I know that you have a lot to talk about. Yeah.
I have the moon in Gemini in the 10th house. So I have done many, many different jobs.
Okay.
And I came into astrology in 1977. I lived next door to an astrologer, and he read my chart and blew my mind. And I just dove in head first, all my friends and family, and read every book and everything that I could possibly get my hands on. But I never really thought that I could make a living at it.
Uh-huh.
So I became an electronics engineer, and I worked in Silicon Valley for quite some time. And then I got married and had some children. And I didn't want to raise them in Silicon Valley. I wanted to raise them out in nature. And I had known about Rudolf Steiner and Waldorf education. So I quit the electronics designing computers and went back to school to get certified as a Waldorf teacher. And then I taught at the Waldorf school as my three girls went through the whole program, and I studied Steiner and anthroposophy for seems like forever. and after that, of course, there are more things. The marriage kind of hit the rocks, and I went through a number of other transformations. Moved out to Hawaii, and
How long did that last?
I was in Hawaii for 3 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and after being a broke Waldorf teacher for so long, I'd always been a carpenter, but I became a contractor in California, and I started building straw bale houses, alternative housing, and, did everything with construction. And then I got into Kundalini yoga in 2009, and that changed everything. I felt like I just opened up to a whole new level of understanding, expanded my consciousness. I started looking at charts, which I had been doing the whole time, in the background. Actually, in 2001, I started to do it, and then it didn't work. So I went back to carpentry, and then I tried again. I think I tried to be an astrologer like 3 times. It was first in 2001, and then again in 2006, and then again in 2010. I mean, it was just like, geez, 3 strikes and you're out. So, but after the yoga, I left California. I moved out to Hawaii. I didn't want to have anything to do with anybody. I just wanted to meditate, eat bananas, and swim with dolphins, and become a mystical, magical being, whatever.
Mm-hmm. And that
And
was at the Big Island?
that was the Big Island, which is Pele, which is where the name of the Pele report came from. I was just fooling around and made a short little video and on
That
astrology.
you can find on YouTube, right? Because the other day I was doing a little research on your name, and it popped up those old videos from that you made in Hawaii.
I am coming around to my 10th anniversary of starting the Pele report.
Okay. Congratulations. You know,
And
you did,
I have not missed a week
I
in the
know.
10 years, you know.
I
I've
know. You're in
so
such, you are in service, right?
Yeah, the Pele report changed everything. So I was just a broke carpenter, eating mangoes on Big Island, and then I started traveling. I went to India for the birth of the Aquarian Age in 11/11/11,
Wow.
and took my camera with me and did my Pele reports in Australia and Bali and India, and then I went on to Africa and Europe. And I mean, so pretty much over the last 10 years, I've been to most countries on the planet now. And so I've done workshops all over the place and taught astrology and yoga, put them together.
Mhm.
Started an online community, got some other astrologers to help me, the Dream Team. Now I'm launching the New Paradigm School of Astrology, and we're doing Astrology Rising, doing this conference in Costa Rica in May. And I don't know, life has just kind of
Took off.
woo. I'm just trying to hang on to you know?
SpaceX, Kaipacha,
Oh.
taking rockets. Well, you've been doing a beautiful work. Thank you very much. You know, actually, I think I joined the community in 2014. I was like just zapping the YouTube channel about astrology, and you popped up, and I said, "Wow, this guy is funny." First, I thought you were funny, and then I said, "Well, he has a message, you know. He's not only wearing rings, a bunch of rings. He's got something to say." But in the beginning, it was very funny, and then I got addicted to your videos. I found a bunch of them, and I think that's how people end up getting to know you. And then I got a bunch of my friends to start listening to your pale reports, you know. So I used to send, and I have a little community online too. So I
Great.
started my astrology in 1982, and I also got engaged into anthroposophical studies. You know, Steiner was a Piscean like me, and I got involved with Waldorf, even though I did not go as far as you did teaching, you know, but I did a lot of form drawing, which I still do with my clients, you know,
Mhm.
to work with both sides of their hemispheres, um, brain hemispheres, and it's been quite a journey with that too, you know, because I'm also a psychologist. So from this point of view, we're gonna talk about Saturn, right? That was the deal.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And I once read a text about Steiner text that he said that the planets were entities, you know, they like the moon had spirits that came from the moon. So he put it as each planet, each sphere, cosmic sphere, has its own electric magnetic field that that is imprinting in each one of us, in the substance of our body. It's magnetic field, it's electromagnetic field, and each planet in our solar system has its own magnetic field. It's like almost having a personality. And we were talking about Saturn having that powerful uh, characteristic that he has 82 moons and seven rings. And I want to listen from you. What do you think the energy of Saturn brings to us in terms of this field of energy that it creates and imprints in the human psychic and in the human body? So this is an invitation for you to talk about Saturn, related to the health, you know, the body structure, you know, the medical aspect of Saturn, the emotional aspect of Saturn. What's your take?
Yeah. It's a big subject. So
Mhm.
I think, looking at the nature of Saturn, and, you mentioned, Steiner, of course, in anthroposophy, it's like everything is spiritual. So there are the spirits of form, the spirits of time, the Caryatides, the Dynames, the cherubim, the seraphim, the angels, archangels, archi. He goes through the whole the whole gamut. Yes, of these spiritual entities that are most people are not conscious of, not aware of. But if you develop your clairvoyance, you become more aware of the subtle energies and that which is unseen, unheard, intangible. And that is all outside, we could say, the realm of Saturn. Saturn is the boundary. It was, Vedic astrology and the ancients could only see with their naked eye. So they stopped at Saturn. Boom. Chronos, time and space, third dimension, uh, polarized consciousness. Everything in the third dimension is, polarized. Day and night, black and white, light and dark, masculine, feminine. It all goes plus and minus, ones and zeros. It goes on and on and on. All of the polarity: two eyes, two nostrils, two ears, two, all the way down. So it's Saturn really has to do so much with boundaries of time and space. And the boundaries of time and space, we could say that we are, Uranus is the individual unconscious, Neptune is the collective unconscious, and Pluto is the soul.
Mhm.
So what we can look at, with new paradigm astrology anyway, is that, we exist as multidimensional beings. But when we come into experience a space-time material existence, we enter the realm of Saturn. We enter the realm of ego. We enter the realm of separation. I and you. And in order for me to live and survive and last through time,
Mhm.
I need to define that's my money, my house, my partner, my food. I mean, it gets, very much Saturn's associated with the root chakra.
Mhm.
This is just right. It's the co-ruler with Pluto, okay, of life and death. So, the root of all fear is the fear of death. And so right now, particularly in 2020, as Saturn
Up, right? Sometimes
comes into
time is up.
comes comes into conjunction with Pluto
Mhm.
in his own sign of Capricorn. And in today's Paleo report, I talked about how from March 5th to the 19th, he's conjunct his own south node at 28 degrees of Capricorn. And so it is just like, this is really a time. Capricorn and Saturn have to do with physical, financial security.
Mhm.
It's an
Struc-
earth sign. It's an
Structures, the bones
earth
of
planet.
society, the bones of man, right?
Yes.
So, from I want you to talk more about that, but from a medical perspective, is that true that Saturn is related to the bones and the skin, the two
Yes.
structure, the most inner and the most outer?
It is the hardest. And if like we want to get into Saturn cycles, even the Waldorf school, it's like they look for the change of the teeth. And that is when Saturn comes around at 7 years old, approximately,
Mm-hmm.
and those baby teeth drop out and the new teeth come in. That's when, Steiner says, okay, that child has some ego structure and is ready now to go to school. That is, it's kind of not what they're doing in so many other schools today. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
anyway.
Well, that's super interesting and super important too.
Yeah.
Build that kind of consciousness about taking time, like bringing things to a more to a slower movement,
Mm-hmm.
one that you can think more, right? Like
Yeah.
when you start giving the proper education for the kid at 7 years of age, I think it starts giving them the time to play and then the time to learn.
Yeah. And some say that a child really cannot lie until they're 7 because they just don't have that sense of I. You know, actually the child doesn't really say I, for the first 2 or 3 years. It's really quite some time before he's or she is,
Separated.
separated to that point. So this is this Saturn energy, which is consolidating, like you said, it is the bones, it's concrete. Okay. It is what lasts through time. It's rocks, mountains, anything, the older it gets, it's old age, it's maturity, and everything. And as we age, as we grow out of subjectivity. Our inner child and our emotional Cancer moon nature is very subjective and personal, and I, me, my, and that's, I need that, or I'm afraid of that, or I da 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 da. And as we mature and grow, the opposite of Cancer in the moon is Saturn in Capricorn, and we become more objective. We become less personal in a way. It's about the next 7 generations. It's about society at large. It's about business and duty and responsibility and fulfilling a role in the greater in the greater society. So
Solidification of your life purpose too, right?
yeah.
Yeah, and that opposition of Saturn and the moon from the axis of Cancer Capricorn, right? It's so interesting. That comes from the extreme sensitivity of the moon of Cancer to the polarized Saturnian Capricornian steadiness, like the holding the emotions. Can you talk a little bit about that? How opposite these two are?
Yes, because I have the moon opposite Saturn. I know exactly what you're trying.
But
I
at
mean,
least they are in Gemini and Sagittarius, right? So that makes a little bit of a more mental, rational thing, doesn't it?
it's
Or
crazy,
does
Mary.
it? How do you feel about it?
Well, basically, Saturn is, like I said, duty, responsibility. Your job and your parents or external authorities expect. So there's expectations to fill a role. So it has to do with your persona or your mask or your job and your reputation, out in the world. And so this is where it's like, oh boy, I could lose my job, I could lose my reputation, I could lose my followers, I could, lose this, that, or the other thing, and so there is this pressure, so Saturn has to do, with pressure, this concrete, rocks, skeletons, bones. This is a pressure like, you've got to look good. You don't want to get fired. You got to show up. And it's not about whether you're hungry or on your moon cycle or tired. It's like you don't show up at that job and you get fired. So
Mhm.
this is like, okay, well, I need to, at some way, shape, and form, I need to control. I need to suppress my emotions. I can't go up to the boss and start crying. It's like, I need a raise. Well, I mean, some people do, but probably cancers.
Uh-huh. Or I'm too emotional today. I can't perform.
Yeah, it's like the boss is going to go, well, there's somebody out here in the waiting list that can, right? So it's just
So it's about bringing the emotion into under control.
Yeah. And so it also, in so many ways, rules suppression. I'm going to take, my family comes last, my personal needs comes last. I'll eat later after I'm done with work. You can, if you go too far in either polarity, you get off balance and you have problems.
Hmm.
If you are all caught up in your own personal family and world and feelings and emotions, you're going to have professional, and job crisis.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if all you do is work and work and work and ignore your family and your personal life and your emotions, you will have family crisis and you will have relationship crisis. So, and this happens with the Saturn cycles, 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, 49, 56, 63, 70, 77. You can just click off the time periods when people have these decisions. Saturn has to do with decisions. It's time to decide.
Hmm.
What are my goals? Okay, it's like I want to commit. Saturn rules with contracts and commitments.
Hmm.
So I'm,
Fidelity and loyalty too.
yeah,
Loyalty in a broader sense. I mean, the endurance of a intention.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh.
And
What if
and
you
of
endure
course
too
we have all
much?
of this, and it has to do with integrity and loyalty and morals and ethics. I mean, it has to do with so many things, but it also, of course, then has to do with the opposite of that. So you can also, we're not saying that all of the Capricorns are, duty and rock hard and trustworthy and in integrity, absolutely not.
Hmm.
Okay, you have to look at the whole chart. You have to look at the dynamics, because Saturn is also, I call it the Lord of Karma.
Hmm.
And so this is a very karmic time in the history of humanity, with Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, south node of Saturn, all in Capricorn, and its consequences for past decisions, and whether those decisions are or were in alignment with our truth or not. And you can be out of truth. You can be out of sync. You can be wearing a mask and try to look good for the boss, look good for the spouse, look good for the kids, and in the meantime, you're double faced. You're out of integrity. You're Harvey Weinstein or Yogi Bhajan, or this whole Me Too thing, okay, is also part, okay, of calling out
The patriarchal.
those external authorities, mostly patriarchs, because Capricorn has to do with the patriarchy.
Hmm.
The nodes of Saturn and Pluto were in Capricorn when the patriarchy birthed itself 6,500 years ago. So there's this
Wow.
association of Capricorn with the patriarchy. And this now is the end of the patriarchy. This is the birth of a new paradigm. Like I say, this is the birth not only of the age of Aquarius. The age of Aquarius is only a couple thousand years.
Hmm.
But this new paradigm that we are now birthing is going to last way longer than a
Yeah.
couple thousand years. So this is even bigger than a new age.
Hmm. Yeah, because you also see Pluto entering Aquarius coming up soon in 2025, right? Or 26.
24, 25, yeah.
24, 25. So that's going to be a big change. So when you look at Saturn, do you see like taking into account Saturn and taking into account Saturn and the moon, do you see the father figure in the chart represented by Saturn position? Of course, that when you have Saturn in square or in opposition or even in trine with the moon, it's going to tell somewhat what the mother energy is about. But how do you see that perspective when you're looking at a chart? You know, how much of a father you see in Saturn, and how much of a mother you see in its opposite polarity, the moon.
Hmm. Well, this is a case where I feel like astrology evolves as our consciousness evolves. So these archetypes change, the interpretations change, and we can say in the old, Hellenistic astrology, okay, in the old ancient astrology days, Saturn was associated with the father.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I look at is I say Saturn is associated with whoever made the rules, gave you consequences, sent you to your room with no dinner, followed up and just like really was the objective law, representative of the external laws. So the fact that there are so many single mothers, they are now naturally, that is the moon nurturing, caring, emotional connection, loving support, and we're together no matter what. And then the father would come in and be more objective and make more expectations, maybe have a little more conditional love. Okay, but now it's like mom having to be both Saturn and the moon. It's not fair. I mean, it's just like, whoa, and you could say, okay, so much of the opioid crisis, okay, so much of the mass shootings, so much of the problems, the drugs, what you could break down, I would say, a lot of the how we say the developed world, you know, and some of the issues and problems that we're having with this, the absent father, the missing, even in psychoanalysis, right? Even, Freud and Lacan, all got into the imaginative and the symbolic and the real.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Definitely. Yeah.
You know,
Very
and
much
and
aware of that.
and when you don't have the real, when you don't have the Saturn there, and mom's got to be okay, fill that role. It's it's super challenging, and so I think kids really grow up in circumstances that are in some ways unnatural.
Yeah. Well, that goes more to the symbolic, huh? The real is what you cannot name. It's the unnameable. And the symbolic is the function of the father, as Jacques Lacan says, like
Yeah.
the name of the father. Like it comes giving names to things, like you put it very well, the unconditional love. Non Not on that stage of unconditional love. You gotta have some conditions, and that's typical Saturn, I guess. I was gonna say, in the beginning, the Roman used to see Saturn as a god. From the first religion part of the Romans, they used to see Saturn as a god, and then he became a mythological figure, uh, more towards the Republic portion of the Roman story. Um, and then Saturn was the god of agriculture, because he was related to planting, and then the harvest time, that period in between putting a seed and waiting for it to grow. So it was also related to the Romans started studying Saturn's cycle in order to know if the crops were going to be successful or not. So it was very much related to plenty and lackness, the lackness of anything, right? So can you talk a bit about that kind of like duality between Saturn If you do the sacrifice, maybe you have the reward, but sometimes you do the sacrifice and you don't have the reward. About the about being about persevering through time, through sacrifice to get something done. Please, your take on that.
Yeah, I mean, Saturn and everything that you're talking about, like even with the plants, it is maturity. And we could say evolution, that all evolution occurs through time, that astrology is the study of time and cycles. And there's a time and a season for everything. And if you go out, like I said, I think it was in the last paleo report, you go out and you plant your seeds in the snow, you know, good luck. Okay, you know, it's like the timing of when you start a business, when you start a relationship, when you start a family, when you know, da, 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 da. And then, so there is the timing of just starting things. And then like you're saying, there is also, I always say, time is a test of desire.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you want that degree for 4 years, okay, you're going to go to every class and do your homework, and you're going to get that degree 4 years later. You may want a degree for 1 year and change your mind. I mean, so commitment, endurance, perseverance. Okay, these are all like, you know, old conservative qualities that, you know, so much today, you know, with the internet and instant gratification. And, you know, there's almost, I feel like an illusion that we don't have to wait or commit or stay with and, you know, and persevere, that if it doesn't happen right away or we don't get it right away or whatever, I mean, it's pretty wacky. So what you're, you know, what I see you referring to is this other aspect and element of Saturn also as the Lord of Karma. What goes around comes around. What I put into a business, a project, a family, a relationship, it's going to come back to me. And this also even relates to the moon cycle, okay, to the, you know, to the astrological aspects. The conjunction is the birth or the seed, 0 degrees. And then it comes around, and that first quarter square, that first quarter moon is putting it out, breaking free from the past, initiating, bringing the seed into reality. And
Mm-hmm.
then it blossoms and it blooms and it grows and we harvest. And that all comes back to what? This is Capricorn, 270 degrees. It's the third quarter square. And so it has to do with the consequences of what we put out. If you deal with the Saturn cycle,
Mm-hmm. Which
we're
is
now,
how long, just for the record?
you know, it is a 28 to a 29-year cycle. And so, you know, Saturn went into Aries, okay, you know, 21, 22 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, you know, 14, 15 years ago that you know, that brought out. So, you know, you can look back at what happened in 2004, 2005 when Saturn was moving through Cancer. Okay. And now it's, you know, on a collective level, on a, you know, the collective consciousness on a world level, you know, we're receiving back these consequences. Now, of course, as an astrologer, you know that that has more to do with the ascendant and the houses and where Capricorn falls in the individual personal birth chart. You can
Yes.
get way more specific.
Yeah, I always tell my friends and clients when I'm doing a reading that when I look at Saturn, I always say that every sequence of behavior, of thought, of investment has a consequence. You know, every sequence, and I think Saturn has a lot to do with rhythm, which is something very important, because if you do something consistently, you do end up getting results. If you take yourself seriously, consistently, in a rhythmically way, you're gonna have good consequences from a result of a sequence. But if you're like drinking or smoking or doing cocaine or taking a lot of antibiotics, the consequence of that sequence is never something good to look at. But I was gonna ask you about the cardinal cross too, as related to Saturn. You know, if you think about Saturn doing a square on the Grand Cross, the cardinal Grand Cross. Uh, so it squares going going forward. It squares
Exactly.
Mars in Aries, then it makes an opposition to the moon in Cancer, and then it makes another square to Venus in Libra. So he's the master. He's the only big, slow, giant planet, like really, having its paws on the personal planets. And how do you feel about that? And it has a lot of action, right? Because it's a cardinal cross.
Yes.
How do you feel about it?
So that, that cardinal cross is the number 4. It's the 4th harmonic. It has to do with the cross, getting, nailed to the cross, hung on a cross, getting, getting our fingers crossed. There's a lot of crosses. Crosses have to do with, the number 4 has to do with, in numerology, you can look at 444 all over the place, 4 seasons. It has everything to do with manifestation in the physical world. 2 times 2. So the cross, okay, is like, this is like the cross of matter when it comes to Saturn and Capricorn being an earth sign. But the cardinal cross, the cardinal is this creative energy. I call it Brahma energy, the cardinal, initiate. And so, like you're saying, this Saturn and Capricorn, this is just where you've got, like we already spoke of that, you've got Saturn, the personal life, my inner child, my inner feelings, okay, my family, even my past challenges is challenged by my need to show up on the job.
Yeah, that's the axis, Capricorn Cancer, right? How?
Then you go over to Aries. Okay. Aries is I, me, my, independent, whatever I want, follow my impulses, be spontaneous, just, start this and charge and go. And, what it's like, well, the boss says, or Saturn says, or time says, or society, or the policeman, or the government, or the guru says.
No.
So, it's just like, so Aries is kind of at odds. Okay. And the inner child and the emotions are at odds. And then what? Libra, partnership and relationship, romance, time together. How many times do people say, oh, honey, I've got to work, or honey, we can't go out tonight. My job is, da, da, da. Or I'm exhausted. I'm too tired from work to even, go out, or, sleep with somebody or whatever. I mean, it's just like, so relationship is also, a severe challenge too, challenged by, limited
Yeah.
by,
Mm-hmm.
okay, our societal role. And it's really something that, Capricorn, the mountain goat, okay, it's actually half dolphin, half fish, half goat. So it's this symbol of going from the bottom of the sea all the way up to the ice cold, barren, rocky mountaintop. And that climb to the top,
Isn't that beautiful? I love that.
is, yeah, I mean,
It's
you gotta,
beautiful, isn't it? You know, because you have to take breaks and breathe in so that you renew your stamina, you to keep climbing, to keep going up, you know. And I think that's what we have to do with Saturn, because that's at times we just like we get crushed by the
I like this.
gravity of Saturn.
I like to ski lift myself, but you know, there does come a time where you have to climb yourself and there's no chairlift.
Mhm. And what about loneliness and solitude? How do you see Saturn imposing its grip on people, on like being alone, being rejected, and being left behind? How do you see Saturn? How do you psychologically communicate that to your clients? And then I'm gonna ask you on the sequence about the first and the second Saturn cycle, because that's what we had in mind.
Okay.
Talk about.
Well, uh, you know, Saturn, like we said, it does have to do with maturity, which is coming out of subjectivity into objectivity and looking at the consequences. So it is associated with reflection. It's time to objectively reflect on my past decisions, choices, commitments, contracts, and also review those to see if they're in alignment with my future goals, aspirations, and where I want to go in the future. So Saturn is kind of where, you know, time is where the past and the future collide, where you need to decide, you know,
Mhm,
what is past and what is future. Is
mhm,
this relationship history? Or are we gonna, you know, are we going somewhere together? Right? Is this job, you know, am I sick of it, or is this where, you know, my true aspirations lie?
mhm.
So this reflection is accomplished unconsciously, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. But one way or the other, when Saturn goes through your seventh house, when Saturn aspects your Venus, when Saturn transits your moon, okay, you know, these planets and signs and houses that have to do with connection, with merging, with union. Saturn has more to do with separation. He's like a wet blanket on the fires of passion,
Wow.
because it is time for you to reflect. It's time for you to objectively draw back and look at the big picture, the long term, so it can create, consciously or unconsciously, isolation, loneliness, separation that we have in some way, shape, or form created for ourselves. It could be a hospital bed, okay? But it's time to step back and review what you're doing, why you're doing it, where it's leading, how it's affecting other people, blah, 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 blah. You know, there's just so much more to our actions and our decisions than we think.
Mhm. Don't you think that Saturn in the moon, Cancer and Capricorn, and all of that that you just mentioned about doing the reflection about the past and the future has a lot to do with your and my and our capacity to write our own biography instead of being a victim of destiny? It's like taking into account, and that happens a lot through the hard transits of Saturn, because either you take control of your life and you decide to write your own destiny, your own sorry, not destiny, biography, or you become a victim of this lord of karma.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head all the time, Sandra. You're just an amazing astrologer. I mean, Saturn has to do with authority, and it starts out as external authority. And ideally, we mature and become the author of our own life, and we own that authority, and we become the authority. So, the upside of Saturn, okay, is that yes, you work hard and your business will succeed, and you stay committed in your marriage and you work through it and it will last. And it's just like, what we put our will and our determination and our consciousness, into, that is what is going to really grow and bear fruit. So Saturn does have so much to do with successful enterprises.
Enterprise and biographies, right?
Heck yeah. You look at, I'm sure you go through history, and everybody you're going to read about had a strong Saturn, or they wouldn't be in the book. I mean, it's like you need to have, if we think of it, as ego, or, self-assuredness, or boundaries. I mean, this is just, yeah.
What about the first Saturn return? Because I think we should funnel the talk to that first experience of the first Saturn return at 29, 28, 29. What's the message there in at that moment, and what do you think is the main message? Because I'm going through, like, today I have a perfect conjunction of Saturn to my Saturn, squaring my moon, squaring my Venus in Aries, and Venus is in Aries in the same degree that it was when I was born. So that square of Saturn and Venus is happening in the sky today.
Ooh.
It's a repetition of that. But how? Because I feel it completely different. The experience is completely different from my first return. But from your experience, how was it with you? How do you see it happening with your clients and friends and kids? And how is it for you, the second return? Because a lot has been said about the first return of Saturn. But the second, we don't find a lot of material about that. So I'm curious about your take on those two major Saturn return cycles.
Like what we were talking about, the Saturn cycle of 28, 29 years comes all the way around at 28, 29. And then it comes around back again at 56, 57, 58. And then it comes around again at 87 or so. So it kind of, breaks the human life span into three. It's like the Trinity, the law of three. Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, whatever. So there's this law of three is a very powerful, natural law. And what we can say is, to me, the first cycle is like you gather together the snow and you pack it into a ball. You make a snowball. So it's mom, dad, teachers, preachers, bosses, policemen, whoever, external authorities form and shape, and you learn and grow and mature to the point where at that first one, I always associate Saturn with graduation. And you graduate out. You are now old enough. You're not a kid anymore. And you can have your own family, and you can have your own business, and you can do your own. So you get more control, you get more authority, and you start to then, instead of being controlled, you start to control. So the second third of life is what I am going to do with my authority, with my power, with my money, with, with my influence, all of these Saturn things.
With the reputation I have built.
Yeah. So when it comes then around the second time, you're dealing a lot more with the decisions and the choices you made since the first. So what did you do through your 30s and your 40s and your 50s? What did you do with that freedom? What did you do with that power? What did you commit to? What did you avoid or run from? What were you afraid of? So this is like, so the first is like, it's graduation. It's time to get out in the world and start doing something. And just like we were talking before, the second one is the consequences of what you have done, and
Mm-hmm.
you get to reflect. Okay.
And you
You
still have time to make changes if you need on the second one.
know, to me, it's like
Adjustments.
the second one is coming to terms in so many ways with death. It's not about being controlled from outside authorities. It's not about controlling the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's about me coming into peace, contentment. True maturity is knowing myself. And I really look at it a lot as, what, where am I going to be on my deathbed? I
Whoa.
mean, it's something to think about. Yes. What will I have regrets? That I did something or that I did not do something, that I said something, that I did not say something, that I did. If we want to live a full, we could say in many ways that life serves death and death serves life. They are a polarity in and of themselves. And so it's like death is constantly calling us to manifest
Time.
as much as we possibly can. So you start feeling the clock ticking. Actually, with my second Saturn return, I was just like, oh my God, you mean I've got another 30 years on this planet? I mean, it's like I thought I was going to be dead, from a motorcycle crash or falling off a cliff or drowning or something. I thought for sure I would destroy myself before I got old, and so the second Saturn return is just like, guess what? You're around maybe a lot longer than you thought you were going to be, and you've got a lot more to like really, process and even do. So this is also a time where it's time to turn around. And it's not about me, it's about the next 7 generations. It's about my experience and
About leaving a legacy.
leaving a legacy, teaching and sharing, everything that we have come, to understand, provided we did that second cycle of Saturn consciously. Because it's also a time where
Mm-hmm.
some people, okay, their diet was funky, their health is funky, they just go into retirement and they sit in front of the television, they collect their social security and they just go meow, and end up in the old people's home, and they're not teaching or really being a model or an example of much of anything because of the choices and the decisions that they made earlier on in their biography.
And do you think that's a product of the Industrial Revolution and the capitalism? Probably.
Well, like I said, we have been in this patriarchal, male dominated, hierarchical, materialistic, particularly since I think Sir Francis Bacon, the end of the Renaissance period, the physical sciences really, became more dominant
Mm-hmm.
in terms of interpreting phenomena, and really brought in with that this sense of this whole, to me, the patriarchy is about conquering the natural world.
The
And,
encyclopedia.
it's just like uh, controlling nature, dominating nature, conquering nature, controlling, dominating, conquering, women, Mother Nature, relationships, business, time. It's been all about, kind of, it's very Saturn, it's separation. Let's make these big, strong steel buildings that, are going to withstand, time. And it's so it's not about cooperating, compromising, integrating, listening, really working together. This is more of the feminine principle. This is more of the moon that's, that has been kind of opposite that Saturn Capricorn patriarchy. And so there's been this emphasis on money, materialism, self-interest. So we have a growing number of narcissists, a growing number of psychotics, a growing number of sociopaths. Okay, there's just this, separation.
Phobia,
I mine.
paranoia. Phobia and paranoia with Saturn, Pluto in Capricorn.
This is just us or them. Me or you. Everybody for themselves. I think it's gone as extreme, okay, as it can really go,
Huh?
where we're now realizing or seeing the consequences, okay, of, I think that they just said, Bill Gates and Elon Musk are the first two to top $100 billion. We're having the controlling, they're just sucking up the money and the resources and the power, and it's like how individuated, how separate, how few people can survive or have that much without negative consequences. The age of Aquarius, the new paradigm, the future is that, and has to do even with enlightenment, nobody gets there alone. If you look at any Messiah, teacher, spiritual, enlightened, Buddha, Christ, Mohammed, Gandhi, Mandela, you reach a point of consciousness and you have to turn around and be a teacher or a healer, or you have to serve and lift up the whole, because we're all on the same planet. We're all sharing the same resources. Aquarius is all about networking. It's about community. And it is about that as long as there's one person left behind, we're not going to get there. We all, it's all about the all. I am you, in lakesh alakin. You are another me. It's just like, we are all in this together, psychically, spiritually, maybe not physically, okay? But even then, we share the same oxygen. We share the same water. We share the same oil or the same trees or the same, we're now facing decisions and choices and the consequences of those decisions and choices on the collective. So we're really sensing, and this coronavirus is just like perfect. It's like this little, Wuhan in China, right? That, every tiny little aspect of the whole affects the whole,
Yeah, and virus, I just learned that the virus it's not even a cell, it's just DNA. It's just DNA and RNA that merges with the cell and then multiplies the cell. It's like just so primitive, and it can cause all that disruption.
Oh yeah.
affecting politics, travel, the stock market. Isn't that amazing? I mean, not
Interest
amazing,
rates.
nice, but
Oh
just like,
yeah.
you know, but looking forward, we have into 2024, 2025, therefore on, moving forward, we're gonna have Saturn and Pluto in Aquarius. Do you see that it's everything, this polarity that we are living, experiencing in the Capricorn, having these three planets in Capricorn now, Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn. And we were talking yesterday, or the day before yesterday, about how much this virus can spread, because Jupiter is going to come to a conjunction with Pluto and might just like burst the whole uh, fear of death and death itself, because Pluto is related to that. But looking forward, do you see that this polarity is going to come to more of an androgynous type of experience, like the Yalakash Alakim that you mentioned, but like the Aquarius bringing that, merging back, bringing back. And I'm so happy that hopefully I'm going to be alive to see Pluto transiting for 14 years in Aquarius. I think this is going to be like super amazing. How do you feel about it?
Well, I hate to be a drag, but I've gotten my hopes up. The harmonic convergence in '87. I thought that Y2K would change everything. I thought the aliens were going to land in 2012. I've been under this, hopeful Piscean, wishful thinking for most of my life. I have Sun square Neptune, and I've been disillusioned over and over and over again. And I got to say that the older that I get, the I, you know, the I'm lowering the bar of expectation so as not to be hurt or disillusioned or let down again. Uh, Aquarius is robots. It's the Internet of Things. Okay, it's 5G. It is, there's massive, major, drastic changes. The good thing is that the Saturn and Pluto, in 2026, Uranus is going to go into Gemini, and it's going to make a nice trine over there to Pluto. And there's going to be a nice, even a sextile, I think, to Neptune in Aries by then. But you know, um, we can look at some positive aspects, and judging from so much of history, uh, we've had opportunities before. I feel very much that many of the souls incarnating now are the same souls that were here on Atlantis and basically destroyed Atlantis and the whole planet before. And they're back here again. Will they learn, or will we destroy the planet again? This is, to me, it's really up in the air. When I see the political elections and the leaders that are being, brought into power and handed power, and the individuals, like I was reading the Bill Gates Foundation, creating vaccines in India that sterilized, the women, and is about, I mean, just ridiculous things.
Did you give shots to your kids?
The minimum. I think we did, diphtheria and tuberculosis and stuff, but
I
we
did
didn't.
to my daughter, but I did the tuberculosis, the only
So,
one. I was following the Steiner idea.
yeah.
She's healthy.
You-
Well, this all sounds very interesting. We could go on talking forever. But can I ask you for one more thing?
I
Yeah,
betcha.
yeah, can we just do like Saturn in the houses, like a short sentence just to wrap up? What would be Saturn on the first house?
Transiting or in the birth chart?
Transiting, yeah, transiting, just so that people, you know, get a sense of what to expect when transit is when Saturn is transiting their first house. What kind of lesson is it that, especially if they're having a Saturn return, but we're not going to go there. We're just like, what is Saturn doing on the first house while it's transiting there, you know?
So to me, Saturn is the great teacher, the great taskmaster that gives us assignments. And those assignments often manifest as blocks, delays, and limitations, and where we need to exercise self-discipline, control, maturity, and dedication. So when it comes and crosses the ascendant and goes into the first house, it's 2.5 years approximately where my identity, myself, I need to grow up. I need to get my act together. I need to set some new goals.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really time to define where I want to go. When it moves then into the second house, it's time for that identity to form money, material, a sense of self-worth. And maybe I need to develop new capacities or new talents or new sources of income in order to manifest that goal that began. And from there, it goes into the third house of networking and learning and communicating and really bringing, it's the neighborhood, okay, and it's the immediate right here now. It's an air house, so maybe I need to go to school, maybe I need to write my book, maybe I need to formulate my thoughts and my thinking, and I need to connect, okay, and write emails and get on, make my website, and like really start to bring substance to that original impulse that I had years ago. And then it goes into the fourth house, and it kind of home, roots, family. This is a time where it's time to set your foundation, and that foundation needs to be, okay, thought out, and it needs to really be patiently built brick by brick. You need to pay attention to your family, to your past, to your personal life, so that you get that personal life together. Because 14 years from then, Saturn will hit your 10th house. And if you built your house in quicksand or, on a floodplain, 14 years later, you will be limited because you don't have the roots. So that fourth house is a time to set your roots down. Then you come into the fifth house, and then it comes out of those roots. Then I start to create, I start to express, I start to really share, okay, my original impulse, and I really direct it in a purposeful way, and I build my own self, and I take some chances, risks, gambling. It's like I trust myself, I build myself up, and I put myself out there. And then it hits the sixth house. And that sixth house has to do with, okay, it is in a way humbling. It is in a way that it's about service. It's about, you may think that you've got this great purpose and this great mission, and you've set your goals on becoming the president or whatever. And the sixth house says, just a minute. you know, you forgot about this, or you need to work on that, or you need a solid, steady routine. It's the house of work, and you need to be relevant. You need to serve somebody. What you want to be is you're not living in a vacuum. You need to prepare yourself for that seventh house to go above the horizon, to come out of your shell, out of your interpersonal reality, and become more objective. And so then it rises into the seventh house of socialization, other people. Are you going to lose yourself? Are you going to lose your purpose? Are you going to lose your identity? Are you going to be absorbed and swallowed by a partner or a business partner, romantic partner, the outside world? It's like, whoa, it's a huge transition when Saturn crosses that descendant. Or are you going to come out swinging, okay, where you think you are going to control and dominate the world and the partnerships and the this and the that and the other? So, there's a lot of growth around relationship and partnership in the seventh house. And then it goes into the eighth house. And that eighth house can be, either marriage or divorce.
Mm-hmm.
It's where these relationships, the consequences of, the result of, okay, I am going to either, really commit myself to the eighth house is osmosis and merging and transforming myself through union with powerful forces beyond my control. Banks, you could receive an inheritance. What are you going to do with it? You could, need a loan from the bank, and you have to justify, that, you're worth a loan. You could want to get married, and you have to prove that, you're worthy of getting married. So there's this, tests and obstacles, and challenges that have to do with, but there can also be, like we say, success. It's like, yeah, I did my work. The bank gives me the loan, and I am more powerful. And then you go into the ninth house. And that ninth house, Sagittarius, is this expansion of consciousness, this expansion out of, it's like you get born again out of that house of death into transpersonal consciousness. So it's, it's like, it's time for my business or my family or my relationship to really serve a bigger, wider, broader function, in the totality. And so it's a good time for expansion through travel, through multiculturalism, through university, another degree, a new philosophy, a new belief system, and all these, it's like, whoa, you start looking at the world in a new way.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Back
out of
to
that,
nature too, right?
what?
Back to nature.
Yes, and natural law. That's, it's, you really become more attuned or aware of. You may not attune to it, but you can at least become aware that, there are, bigger, wider laws governing your growth and expansion. Yeah. So Saturn going through that ninth house is actually maybe some limiting core beliefs that need to be changed or modified. Then it goes into the 10th house. And that 10th house is honors, awards, recognition. It's business. It's time to really get it together in your professional life and, be trustworthy. If you want to be treated with dignity, walk tall, be dignified, have healthy boundaries, draw the line, say this flies and this doesn't fly, this goes and this doesn't go. It's like ascending to the throne and becoming the king or the queen. You've got responsibility. And for better or for worse, see how much you can deliver. So there's a lot of tests, with that. And then no sooner do you reach the top than Saturn starts to descend. And that cycle peaks after 21 years. That's 21 to 23 years or so. Then Saturn goes into that 11th house of liberation. And this is where your business, either maybe it goes global, it goes bigger, multinational. It's like, you really start meeting the needs of a greater, wider, broader, community. And, or you liberate yourself and you say, you know what, I'm done with that. The 11th house is the future. Saturn is committing to a new future, new goals. What's the next cycle? You start looking ahead, to your next, to your next cycle. Do I want to keep doing the same business, or maybe it's time for me to experiment or branch off into something new?
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes into the 12th house. End, finish, close, complete, let go, go in, dream a new dream, connect with a new vision. Maybe go into seclusion, isolation, do a Vipassana silent retreat, and just really reflect on everything that's happened over that last big cycle. And then maybe you start to paint or draw. It's time to work behind the scenes, building your portfolio, designing things that, nobody knows about or whatever. And then when it comes around to the ascendant, you start a new cycle. You come out of, that place of hopefully being, spiritually impregnated, fertilized by the divine. and you start a new Saturn cycle of, yeah, the world needs this.
So beautiful. Thank you so very much. Just to wrap up, I think that Saturn invites us to reflect if we are going to be a gatekeeper or a game changer. If we are going to grow old and get old, or if we are going to mature and become wise.
Yeah.
Wisdom is something that comes with time, with reflection. So I'm so thankful for you taking the time to talk to me. You've been telling me to do the videos, and I've been on my Saturn holding back, but today I did it. Now, can you tell, just to wrap up, to tell my friends and my audience about your upcoming event in Costa Rica, and also how can people join our community? I say I because I'm part of it.
Yeah. Astrology Rising, Unity in Diversity, May 5 to 12 in Costa Rica on Flamingo Beach. And we're going to have, you don't even need to know that much astrology. We're going to have different levels, different tracks, where, yes, you will learn, astrology, but we're going to be doing kirtan, we're going to be doing yoga, we're going to be doing drumming on the beach. We're going to be doing chanting and dancing and swimming. And it's an interdisciplinary approach towards understanding the nature of growth, evolution, not only through the stars, but through ourselves.
And
So
how can we find information about that event?
that has its own website. It's astrologyrisingcostarica.com.
Okay.
But if you go to my website, newparadigmastrology.com, there's a link to it, and you can, it'll just go right over there. Because
anyone can subscribe to your newsletter, right? A weekly newsletter, and the Pale Report is also free. But if you want to join the community, you get a lot more, right?
I do we send out a video every week. We've got an online forum for questions and answers. We got a Facebook group page. We send out a lunation planner that, follows the moon. And every week you get a little thing in your inbox about what's going on with the moon. We've got, just discounts for the school. If you want to learn astrology, there's 1,000 people. You get to just meet, like-minded people that are into the same cool stuff.
Tell us where you're broadcasting from.
I'm home now in Costa Rica here. Yeah.
Costa Rica. Okay, my dear. So I'll let you go. Thank you so very much. My heart chakra is so open.
Oh, thank you for having me. Fantastic, Sandra.
And I talk.
Many blessings.
Bye.
Okay, namaste.
Namaste.